There are stories we bury so deep that even we struggle to believe they happened. For years, I convinced myself that silence was my only escape. If I didn't speak about it, if I locked it away in the darkest parts of my mind, then maybe, just maybe, it would fade. But time has a cruel way of exposing the things we try to forget. Now, at 30 years old, I can no longer keep this truth hidden. It haunts me in ways I never expected, shaping every moment, every relationship, every breath I take. This is not a story of love or happiness. It is not about warm memories of childhood or a mother's unconditional love. This is a story of deception, of manipulation, of betrayal so deep that it shattered the very foundation of my life. When people think of stepfathers, they picture protectors, men who step in to care for a child as their own. But my stepfather? He didn't marry my mother out of love. I was the reason he was there, the real prize he had been waiting for. And by the time I understood that, it was too late. My nightmare had already begun. My mother was a fighter, a woman of resilience, strength, and unwavering love. When my father passed away, she refused to crumble beneath the weight of grief. Instead, she poured every ounce of herself into raising me, into keeping our lives afloat. Her boutique was more than just a business, it was a symbol of her determination. A place where she rebuilt herself from the ground up. I watched her work tirelessly, sacrificing her own happiness to ensure I had everything I needed. And for a long time, I believed that was enough. Then Victor entered our lives. He was charming, intelligent, the kind of man who could command a room with a single glance. At first, I wanted to believe he was just another kind customer, someone passing through. But there was something about him that made my skin prickle. A tension in the air whenever he was near. I couldn't explain it, not at first. My mother, on the other hand, was captivated. She had spent so many years alone. And for the first time in a long time, I saw her eyes light up again. But that happiness came at a cost. And deep down, I knew something wasn't right. It started with small things that, at first, I told myself were just my imagination. A lingering glance that lasted too long. A hand that brushed against mine in a way that felt too intentional. A closeness that made my stomach twist in unease. Victor was always watching. I could feel his eyes on me in ways that no stepfather should ever look at his wife's daughter. At first, I brushed it off, convincing myself that I was overthinking. He was just kind, affectionate, maybe a little too familiar, but nothing sinister. But then, his touches started to linger. A hand resting on my shoulder just a little too long. Fingers grazing my back when he walked past me. There was something in his gaze, something dark. Something I didn't understand. I tried to ignore it, to pretend that I was imagining things. But deep down, I knew, this wasn't normal. This wasn't how a father figure should look at me. Wasn't how a man should speak to a girl he was supposed to protect. A sick feeling curled in my stomach whenever he was near. I wanted to tell someone, to scream the truth, but instead, I stayed silent, trapped in my own fear. I thought I had escaped him. Graduation felt like freedom, like stepping into a world where Victor was nothing more than a shadow of the past. I moved forward, convinced that whatever unsettling feelings I had once experienced were just paranoia. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. And the day my mother sat me down with that radiant smile, my world shattered in an instant. "Maya, I've met someone," she said, eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in years. Happiness radiated from her, pure and unguarded. My heart softened after everything she had sacrificed for me. She deserved this. She deserved love, companionship, someone to share her quiet mornings and lonely nights. I wanted to be happy for her. But when the door opened and Victor walked in, smiling like he had won, my breath caught in my throat. The blood drained from my face as the room seemed to shrink. The past I thought I had escaped had just walked through our front door. My mother beamed, oblivious, introducing him as if this were a beautiful coincidence. But I knew better. This wasn't fate, this was a calculated move. And for the first time, I realized Victor was never truly gone. For a while, I convinced myself I was overreacting. Maybe I had misread everything. Maybe, just maybe, he had changed. Victor was everything my mother needed: attentive, caring, devoted. He showered her with affection, made her laugh, brought a light back into her eyes that I hadn't seen in years. If he was capable of loving her so deeply, then maybe I had been wrong about him. Maybe the glances, the lingering touches, the uncomfortable moments were all in my head. So I let myself believe in the illusion of a happy family. I told myself that I should be grateful. My mother deserved joy. And if Victor could give it to her, who was I to question it? Months passed, and my fear faded into the background, buried beneath the routine of everyday life. He never acted strangely around me, never gave me a reason to relive my discomfort. Eventually, I let my guard down. But deep down, something inside me still whispered, watch him. It was a quiet voice, one I ignored for the sake of peace. Because in the back of my mind, I knew a man like Victor doesn't change. He only waits, and when the time was right, he would strike. The day started like any other, quiet and unassuming. I woke up feeling weak, my body heavy with fever. My mother fussed over me before leaving for work, pressing a cool hand to my forehead and whispering promises to bring me soup later. I never imagined that by the time she returned, everything would be different. I spent most of the morning in and out of sleep, the fever dulling my senses. Then, a gentle knock at the door. Victor. He stepped inside, carrying a glass of water and 2 small pills in his palm. Take these, Maya, you'll feel better soon, he said, voice warm, familiar. I hesitated, but my body ached, my mind too sluggish to argue. I swallowed them without question, chasing them down with the water he handed me. That was my first mistake. Minutes passed, then something shifted. A strange heaviness settled over me, spreading through my limbs. Panic fluttered in my chest. But when I tried to move, my body refused to obey. My breath caught as Victor sat beside me, his eyes unreadable, his smile slow and deliberate. You don't have to fight it, Maya, he whispered, and that was when I knew I had walked straight into his trap. Panic surged through me, but my body remained frozen. I could feel everything, my heart pounding in my chest, my breath coming in shallow gasps, but I couldn't move. My limbs were leaden, weighed down by whatever Victor had given me. I was trapped inside my own skin. He leaned in closer, his breath warm against my cheek. You don't have to fight this, Maya, he murmured, his voice disturbingly soft. I wanted to scream, to push him away, to claw my way out of this nightmare, but my body refused to obey. Inside, I was raging. My mind screamed 1,000 protests, 1,000 pleas for this not to be real. But Victor? Victor was calm, controlled. He had waited for this. He had orchestrated every moment, played the long game, made sure I was alone, vulnerable, unable to resist. I fought to keep my thoughts clear, to resist the darkness pressing in at the edges of my vision. I needed to think. I needed a way out. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, Victor pulled back. His eyes flickered with amusement, as if he could hear every frantic thought in my mind. We'll take our time, he whispered. There's no rush. As the haze began to lift, so did my terror. My limbs were still sluggish, my head spinning, but the fog in my mind was clearing. Victor had left the room, believing he had all the time in the world. But I knew better. This was my only chance. With every ounce of strength I had left, I willed my fingers to move. Just one twitch, one breath, one shift. It felt like fighting through quicksand. But finally, I managed to move my hand. Then my arm. My entire body trembled as I forced myself upright. My breaths ragged and uneven. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't wait for him to return. My eyes locked onto my phone, sitting just inches away on the bedside table. It felt a mile out of reach. My fingers fumbled as I grabbed it, my vision blurring as I dialed. The moment I heard the operator's voice, a sob ripped through me. 911, what's your emergency? My lips parted, but the words refused to come. How do you say something like this out loud? I swallowed the terror clawing up my throat. Help me, I finally whispered, my voice shaking. Please, he's still here. The sirens sliced through the night, their wails sharp and relentless. But they weren't loud enough to drown out the pounding of my heart. My body was still weak, my limbs trembling from the lingering effects of the drug. But I refused to let the fear consume me. Help was coming. I could hear Victor moving through the house, oblivious to what was about to unfold. He thought he still had control. He had no idea that I had shattered his carefully crafted illusion. That his time was up. When the pounding on the door came, my breath caught. Police, open up. The moment Victor swung the door open, the mask fell from his face. His charm, his carefully constructed innocence, it all crumbled. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. The officers didn't hesitate, moving swiftly, restraining him as he struggled. Maya, he called out, his voice smooth, coaxing. as if he could still manipulate me. But I didn't flinch, I didn't tremble, I stood my ground. As they took him away, my mother's voice rang out behind me, a mix of confusion, betrayal, and devastation. What's happening, Maya? What's going on? And for the first time, I told her the truth. Even with Victor gone, his presence lingered like a stain I couldn't wash away. The nightmare didn't end with his arrest. It lived in the silence. In the way my mother avoided my eyes. In the weight of every unanswered question. She sat across from me, hands shaking, face pale, drowning in a guilt she could never erase. I didn't know, she whispered, voice brittle, fragile. I wanted to tell her it wasn't her fault. That she had been manipulated just as much as I had. But the words felt hollow. The truth was, we had both been deceived. And we would both have to live with the scars he left behind. Days turned to weeks, and the world moved forward. But I felt stuck, like time had frozen in that single moment when I realized Victor had been watching me all along. Healing wasn't a straight path. Some days I felt strong, like I could reclaim the pieces of myself he had tried to take. Other days, the memories clawed their way back in, pulling me under. But one thing was certain, I would never be silent again. Victor stole my voice once. But I wouldn't let him take it forever. This was my story to tell. Stories like Maya's are more than just fiction, they reflect the harsh realities that many people face in silence. In today's world, manipulation, deceit, and abuse often come disguised as love and trust, making them harder to recognize. If something feels off, trust your instincts, speak up, set boundaries, and don't let fear or guilt keep you silent. Survivors are not weak, they are warriors who fight battles most will never understand. Support those around you, listen without judgment, and most importantly, know that healing is possible. No one should suffer in silence. Your voice is your power, never let anyone take it from you.